All right, I think we're good to go. Welcome everyone to the Camino night. I'm Lynne, obviously. I work at Wild Earth in the Burleigh store. So we've got Danny and Tash, the two store managers, and Wendy here helping tonight, which is fantastic. So I walked the Camino Frances 2 years ago exactly. So I started on the 7th of April in St John and walked 900 k's. So I walked to Santiago, had a couple of nights in Santiago, and then I walked the extra 4 days to Finisterre, which was amazing. And it went just incredibly well, just almost perfect. And then I caught the bus from Finisterre just back to Santiago and down to Porto, and had a couple of days in Porto before I came home. So tonight I'm not a public speaker, I'm just a hiker. I'm also a midwife and a registered nurse. I'll hit 40 years next month that I've worked at the hospital at Murwillumbah in Tweed. Yeah, so I still work there casually, and I work at Wild Earth as well. I was due to walk the Camino in 2020 in March, but of course everyone's life was turned upside down, and I didn't get to go. I had my bag packed, I was ready to go, and I'd taken 6 months long service leave. So I actually went back to work and then realised I really didn't need or want to be there anymore permanently. I was running the antenatal clinic for 12 years at the hospital, and so I then took a year of long service at half pay and started working at Wild Earth, and I kind of haven't looked back, which is great. So I hadn't actually started hiking. I've got 4 kids and on my own for most of the years. I didn't actually start multi-day hiking until I was had turned 50. So I just joined a couple of bushwalking clubs of Brisbane and the Gold Coast Bushies, and got to meet lots of lovely like-minded people. And I'm a bird watcher as well, so I get out in the bush and do a lot of birding and a lot of hiking. So tonight, sort of the first half will be me talking about the Frances, but mainly all things Camino. So please, it's very informal. Please feel free to ask questions. Stop me, say, what are you talking about? Or, what are the differences between that and that? And I've got a little slideshow of my Camino, but mainly so it prompts us as I go to think of things to tell you about, albergues and boots and shoes and gear and places to stop, and just some ideas as we go. So that's what that part's about. So that takes about, I don't know, maybe about an hour. And then the second hour, I've actually got my pack fully packed as though I'm about to head off. And so I'll unpack it and just give you some ideas of what I took. I've got a gear list. This is actually my gear list here with literally everything, the brands, the styles, whatever I took. And Wild Earth also has a sort of a slightly more generic gear list as well, packing list. So between the two, hopefully it ticks all the boxes and you have everything you need. But I mean, the main thing to say is it's very much an individual experience. Some people carry all their gear, some people have luggage transfer, some people start in Sarria, some start in Leon, some do the Portuguese. So there's so many ways to do it, and I think that's the important thing, that it's so individual, but the main thing is it's potentially a life-changing experience and just the best thing you've ever done. I walked the coast to coast in England a few years before it, and that was my favourite, and I just loved it until I walked the Camino, and now it's by far my favourite. So that's me. That's me on the overland track. So I do a lot of multi-day hiking now as well. So when COVID hit and I couldn't walk the Camino, I actually turned into a multi-day walker. So a few of my adventures that I've done, multi-day hikes, I've done the overland track twice, the Jatbula Trail, which is in the Northern Territory, which is amazing, the Sunny Coast Hinterland Great Walk a couple of times, Walls of Jerusalem in Tassie, Moreton Island, a multi-day walk there, Gibraltar Washpool World Heritage Walk, which is sort of towards Glen Ennis, which Tash and I did, the Osborne Trail on Hinchinbrook Island, which Tash and I did, and the Camino. Does that help? Is that better up the back? Thank you. And Wendy for a few chairs, a couple more people. Thank you. Self-guided walk. So the difference between a thru-hike, a self-guided walk, thru-hikes are what most of us call the hike where you carry everything and there's no facilities along the way. And then a self-guided one is where you usually carry a day pack. and your luggage is transferred. And then the Camino sort of falls somewhere in between that, because you don't need to carry everything, because you've got a bed at night, like the hut-to-hut ones in New Zealand, yeah. So they're all different ones. And future hikes, on Tuesday I'm going to Nepal to hike in the Annapurnas, I know. I'm doing the Poon Hill trek next week, and then I'm going back to Portugal and doing the Camino Portuguese from Porto in September. So it's like the bug. Once you have the bug, it's really hard to not have the bug. Sorry?
Is that an easier walk?
This one, the Portuguese?
More flatter?
I don't know about flatter. The Portuguese starts in Lisbon, but a lot of people start in Porto, which is where I'm starting. And from Lisbon on, the first part of it is fairly flat, and there's a lot of road walking and not nearly as much infrastructure as there is on the Frances. So in that sense, it's a harder slog. From Porto, it's apparently beautiful. You can do the coastal or the central route, so a lot along the coast or through the countryside. And then there's a variant which adds an extra day, but it's called the spiritual variant, and it takes you out to the coast, and then you catch a boat across, which is what we're going to do, and then back inland and then back up to Santiago. So there's the coastal, the central, or the spiritual variant when you get to the top. So that was just a question about the Portuguese Camino. So I'll tell you after October whether it's easier or harder. What is the Camino? So has anyone walked the Camino before? Yes? Which one?
Camino Frances.
Great.
From Saint-Jean to Santiago.
Yeah, amazing.
I've done the Poon Hill one.
Oh, have you? Great. Oh, we'll chat later. Thank you. So all Caminos, apart from the Finisterre, end in Santiago. So it's a 800-year-old pilgrimage that the pilgrims have been walking to Santiago, which is where the bones of St James are in the cathedral. There's many different ways to go. So this is the Portuguese, which is what I'll be doing later this year, and the Frances goes along the top, but the Norte goes above the Frances. So all sorts of combinations, and all of them apart from this little bit extra out to Finisterre end in Santiago. So there's a lot of decisions to make about how to actually even start. Some people fly into Paris, some fly into Barcelona, some fly from the UK. So I flew into Barcelona. I didn't have any other activities planned. It was just purely to walk the Frances. So I flew to Barcelona, had a few days there to regroup, and then I caught a train up to Pamplona and had one night in Pamplona, and then caught the bus up to St Jean. But there's many other ways that you can go, so that's kind of the first decision that you need to make, is where to fly to and how to get there, and if you have other things planned. Because everything in my pack was so precious and I'd planned it so, specifically, I really didn't want to have my bag as checked in. I wanted to have it as carry-on, so it weighed 7 kilos, and I had my hiking poles, which I love, and I wanted to have them with me, but I knew I couldn't check them in, have them as carry-on. Occasionally people have said that you can have your poles as carry-on, but I wasn't going to risk it because others say you can't. So I actually took a little, a little old suitcase that my son had that he no longer wanted, and so I actually checked this little suitcase in, and in it I had my hiking poles and my knife and my scissors and just things that I knew I couldn't carry on. And when I got to Barcelona, I just spoke to the people who were in the little hotel that I was staying, where could I donate it to charity, and they said they wanted it, so that was really good. So then I had all my things with me that I needed. And then when I came home, I actually checked it in and put my poles and put everything in there, because once I finished, if I'd lost some of my gear, it wasn't the end, or it didn't turn up at the end, it wasn't the end of the world. But I think that's a big concern that a lot of people have, is you don't want to arrive in Spain and your bag hasn't turned up on the carousel. That's everyone's worst nightmare. So that was just a little, trick that I had to get there. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry? I don't know about easy to find. I know in Pamplona there was a really good little outdoor store that even some people had bought new shoes there that had sort of gotten to Pamplona and what they'd chosen was just not cutting it. And so they got new shoes there, and there's definitely poles and all sorts of things there. But I guess whatever city you land in, you can get them. It's just that I loved mine. I've had a fractured wrist and I have cork handles and just specific poles that I like, and I couldn't see the point of buying another pair if I could get mine there. So, yeah, but you certainly could buy them once you got there.
Portugal at Decathlon stores, so yeah, I know they.
In Portugal, yeah, Decathlon is a bit like a chain. Yeah, for sure.
In Lisbon and Porto.
Yes, great, yeah. So there'll be options. I just didn't want to have anything that I didn't have with me to worry about when I got there. So this is in St John. So once I got up to St John, I stayed one night there. And when I arrived, you go to the Camino office and pick up your passport. So that's mine. It is just, I don't know, worth its weight in gold. I absolutely love it. I managed to fill it completely. So I had a few gaps left randomly when I walked to Finisterre, so they were filled, and I had one left. And when I went to Porto at the very end in Portugal, there's an albergue there. So most albergues you can only stay one night and you have to be out at 8 o'clock in the morning. But the one in Portugal, in Porto, you can stay more than one night, and it's for pilgrims who are finishing or starting pilgrimages. So I stayed in that one and got my very last stamp there. So when you get to the Camino, the passport office in St John, there's a big dish of shells. Well, there was when I was there, a dish of shells, and so you can just pick your shell out and make a donation. Oh, sorry, for the people up the back, that's my pack. So you can just, choose your shell, tie it on, leave a little donation, and then they'll give you your Camino passport. And it's usually in a little, a plastic snap lock bag. So they gave me that. And so I took this, which was fantastic. So I really recommend a little bum bag, because every time you walk into an albergue in the afternoon when you arrive, they want your passport and your Camino passport, and obviously you have to pay. So I just kept everything in this little guy. Sometimes I walked with it on me, because I also took my binoculars, because I did a bit of birding while I was there. So it actually kept my binoculars as well. So if I wanted my bins, I could keep it here. But if I didn't, I really, really recommend having something like this, because you can keep all your belongings, your phone, your money, your cards, your proper passport, your Camino passport, everything in something like that. And as I walked, I had it in the brain of my pack, so it sit in the top of the pack while you're walking, and then when you stop to get a coffee or lunch or whatever, you just take it with you. Never don't have it with you. And then also when I'd go to the shower at night, it'd just go in my little bag to go to the shower. It'd go under my pillow when I slept at night. Yeah.
Let's ask about the accommodation. Do you have to pre-book, or do you just turn up?
So the question was about accommodation. So that's purely a personal choice. Some people don't book at all and just, wing it. I was not going to book at all, but when I got to Pamplona, I was actually starting on Good Friday, and then walking over Easter up to Roncesvalles and on. And they said there'll be just no accommodation. You'll get none. So luckily, the people I stayed with in Pamplona were able to ring ahead for me, and they could speak French and Spanish. And so another question is, if you start the... That's right, yeah. I stopped in because the bus goes from Pamplona up to St John, yeah. So I stayed a night with friends of friends. And so when I stayed there, so he rang Orison, and that's another question for anyone doing the Frances, because it's 25 Ks and it's 1,200 metres of elevation, which is a fairly big day. So day one is just monstrous. So I preferred to stay in Orison because I was in no rush. I had plenty of time, and I really didn't want to, injure myself on the first day and potentially, not enjoy it. So I wanted to stay in Orison. So Orison is about 9 Ks in. And the guy that I was staying with in Pamplona luckily rang Laurent, who runs this little albergue called Albergue Border in Orison. So there's Orisson is nothing. It's just in the middle of the Pyrenees, and there's a big albergue, and about a kilometre on there's another small, really small albergue that only has about 15 beds. And so he rang the big one, and there were no beds, and rang the little one, and the guy, Laurent, allowed me to sleep in their lounge room sort of area. So that was amazing. That was the best start. And two of the people that I met, Laura and another German girl, were in Santiago when I walked in. They actually were there to greet me. So it's just amazing your Camino family, the people I met on day one were actually in Santiago when I finished. And that's what I love about the Camino, is just that sense of family. So I stayed in Orisson, and the next night was Roncesvalles, and the next night was Zubiri. So I actually had those 3 nights booked in advance because it was Easter. So I help a lot of Camino customers in the store, and I've had a lot of them come in and say, I can't get accommodation in Orisson, I can't get accommodation in Roncesvalles, I can't, even Zubiri. A lady was in the shop the other day and said she tried to get into Zubiri and couldn't, and so she's actually going to catch a taxi 6 kilometres, another town 6 k's from there, and the next day she'll come back and start where she left off. So it's, sorry.
When is that, did she say?
It's not that far away. It's in the next few months. So, seasonally, it might be busier in the middle. Hard to know. It's just getting so busy, I think. This is an indication of how busy it's getting. So personally, I absolutely didn't want to have to book accommodation in advance, but in the end I booked 1 day ahead the whole time. So once I got over those 3 days, today I would work out where I was going to be tomorrow and book that night, so that I didn't actually have that concern of walking and then worrying that I wasn't going to get accommodation, then have to walk further or, yeah?
Is that because you followed what they call the stages?
No, I didn't follow the stages. I did how far I wanted to walk. I don't like walking 30 k's or more, and they're in the stages. So the stages that, the question was, did I walk in the stages? So this is the stages. Has everyone seen Briley's book? Don't ask me what I did to my book. God. I had this brainwave about 3/4 of the way through, and I saw someone had ripped out everything that they'd done and lightened the load, and so I just ripped my book to shreds. God. Anyway, so it was the worst. And I had all these little, anecdotal things written in there, and where to stay and where not to stay and what was beautiful. And I had all that written, and then I threw it all in the bin. And then the rest of it just fell apart. And so this is all I've got left. But anyway, so the stages, it's really good to follow. You can see how many Ks and, what towns are from A to B. So what I did, like for example, there was one section where there's, in Briley has 2 30k sections, but I divided that into 3 20s. And so I just had 3 20s, which suited me more. I never had any issues. Sorry, your question?
Just when you made the phone calls to the accommodation, how did they go with the Aussie accent?
So the question was about phoning ahead to get accommodation. So I used an app called Wise Pilgrim. There's a few around. There's One Camino, Wise Pilgrim. I used Wise Pilgrim. It cost $7, and I've downloaded it for the Portuguese Camino. It's a different one, and it's fantastic. It took me a few weeks to realise that half of it is like a GPS, so you can actually see where you're going. I didn't even know that. so you can actually follow where you are on one half, and so it tells you, what town you're in and what town's coming up next and what facilities they have. And what's marvellous is it has all of the accommodation in each of the towns, and then you can tap on the accommodation and it takes you to how to book the accommodation. So quite often it was WhatsApp, so you just sent a message on WhatsApp. Sometimes it was booking.com, even the albergues, it was booking.com, it was WhatsApp, and occasionally it was just a phone number, but luckily halfway through I met 2 Dutch guys, and we ended up walking together for the last half, and they could speak 5 languages. So I just used to get Hank to ring up and say what I wanted. But but Wise Pilgrim, and I believe One Camino works exactly the same, but it told you how much the albergue or the hotel or whatever you want to say, how much it cost, how many beds it had, and what other facilities were in that little town. It was just fantastic. It made life easier. $7 is a one-off fee. Yeah. So I've still got mine. And they divide the Frances into 3 sections, which I'm sure you know. So the 800 Ks, they divide it into the physical, and then the mental, and then the spiritual. So the first half is the first third is the physical, obviously, because you know, your back's aching, your feet are sore. You've got to learn to sleep in a room with 30 snoring people and things like that. And then the next third is the Metta, which I'll get to, which is pretty flat, and you know, some people find that that's where mentally it's a struggle, and also your demons or whatever, you know, the things that you're going there to work through come out. And then once you're beyond all of that, they say the last third is the spiritual, where you've, you know, come to terms with everything and you're just enjoying it. But personally, I didn't go there with any sort of life issues that I needed to process. I just went because I really wanted to do it. My daughter did it when she was about 20. She was living in the UK for 2 years, and before she came home, she said, "Mum, I just want to do something special." And I'd just watched The Way. Have any of you watched the Martin Sheen one? Oh God, I just watched it, and we're Catholic, and so you know. And I just said, "Mairead, just watch this movie and you'll want to walk the Camino." And she did, and did it on her own like I did. And she met 2 people, interestingly, and ended up walking with them for most of the way, and went to Finisterre. So she kind of did it exactly the same as me. And I did it in 40 days, which I wanted to do 40, and she did 40. And so it was just a really lovely, you know, mother-daughter reversey kind of thing. Yeah, so anyway, what was, sorry? Yeah. Yeah, either way. So the question was about cash. So I just made sure I always had some cash with me. I had, I've got a Wise card now. I don't know if I've just come back. I've just had 6 weeks in Costa Rica. And so I had a Wise card, and it just worked so well to tap things or to take cash out of an ATM. So I'll use that in Nepal. And I was in the States as well recently, and it worked. And Sri Lanka for that matter. I was in Sri Lanka in November for a few weeks, yeah. And so I think a Wise card. I had a Travelex card, I think it was, when I was over there, and that worked well. But I just made sure I had cash and card, and it depended which albergue you stayed at, what they wanted. So albergues, there's a wide range of albergues. Obviously, there's the municipal albergues, which are, you know, cheaper, probably 10 euro, and lots of beds and not a great deal of space and pretty minimalist. And usually they don't offer a meal. But I quite often stayed in a private albergue, which was still quite a few people, but run privately, and the host would often have a meal that all the pilgrims could join in. So that was maybe between 12 and 15 euro to stay there, and maybe another 15 for the meal. But beautiful, you know, Spanish home cooked. And it was just the experience of sitting around the table with other pilgrims from all over the world that you got to meet. The one thing I did too much, and then I was sorry I did, is when you are in a village or a town, they'll actually advertise a pilgrim's meal at a, you know, a cafe or a restaurant, but it's pretty standardy, not great. So I think a pilgrim's meal at an albergue is a totally different deal to a pilgrim's meal out and about. So if you're out and about, it's probably worth going to somewhere and ordering something that's more traditional and just an experience, rather than get a pilgrim's meal, because you'll just get, you know, the fish or the beef, you know. Yeah, it's just, but private albergues I found were amazing. I only stayed in a hotel one night, and that was when I was in Burgos. I thought I'd treat myself. That's a third of the way in. Beautiful old hotel in the middle of town. It wasn't overly expensive, and it was beautiful, but I actually missed everybody. It was really funny. By the time I'd had, you know, hundreds of Ks of just having my family around me, all different people, and I just missed having that company. WhatsApp, I really would recommend WhatsApp. Anyone that you met and that you saw regularly along the way, we'd exchange our WhatsApp. So when you got it, you might walk on your own all day, but then when you got into the village in the evening, you'd just WhatsApp each other and say, you know, we're going for a drink at such and such a place. And I'm pretty social, so I like that, but you don't have to do that if you're not really keen to socialise and have that experience, then you don't have to do any of that. But I found it was, I really enjoyed it. So getting back to the beginning, getting your pack fitted properly is really, really important. I honestly, so a few times I saw people, there was a lovely Korean lady and she had a massive pack and it was all lopsided and it was sitting like way up here. It was so ill fitted on her and she didn't realise that you couldn't get a pack fitted better. And another lovely Dutch friend, one day, probably 2 or 3 weeks in, she was walking along and really complaining about her shoulders and her neck, and she said, I'm just in agony. And when I looked at her pack, she hadn't actually pulled in the load. She didn't even know that you had load lifters that you could pull in and make it sit on your back. So it was, falling right off her back. So, I think it's your feet and your pack are probably the two most important things, I think. I've just got an example of a few packs along here that we have here. And I spend a lot of time at Burleigh having Camino, or people doing all sorts of hikes, come in, and sometimes you have to go through half a dozen packs, try them, adjust them, work them out, and unless you kind of do it a lot, you don't know what looks right or not. And the size of the pack is another debatable question. I had a lady, I don't know whether she ended up coming, she messaged me yesterday. I get a lot of messages on my Insta account and try and help everyone I can. But she's got a big pack, 60 or something litres, and it weighs 10 or 12 kilos, and she just said, it's way too big. I'm coming into Wild Earth, what am I going to do? And so I said, look, 35 to 45 is where I'd aim. And if you can't fit it in, then you've got too much stuff. And that was and I said, come and I'm more than happy to help you. But I just think it's pointless starting off with something that's going to be really difficult. Because what will end up happening is either an injury or you'll have to have luggage transfer because you just physically can't take it. And quite a few people started carrying their things and had luggage transfer, and on my Camino, I didn't, thankfully. But it can either be because you've got an injury and it's either, lose the load or not continue, or really sore feet or whatever you have to do. So luggage transfer is actually really easy. Where you stay, there's usually, you can do it online, or there'll be like a little envelope-y thing. And as long as you know where you're heading the next night, say whatever town, and the albergue you're going to, you just get the envelope, or do it online, and I think it's €7, and you just fill in your details, get your little envelope, and then they'll just come to the albergue and pick your bag up and in the morning by whatever time, 8 o'clock when everyone's gone, and take it to where you're going to go that night. So you'll arrive in the afternoon and your gear's there. So that's an option. So I guess the other thing to be mindful of is taking a little day pack, so that if you end up having an injury and you can't carry your gear, that you have got a little day pack that you can pop your bits and pieces in. And a little day pack's just something that you need anyway, because when you go to the shower, you can just chuck all your bits and pieces in to take to the shower. If you go into the village in the afternoon and want to have a little pot around and get a few snacks or something, it's good to have a day pack. Those little ones that just fold up to next to nothing. They're really handy. So the pack, I wore my pack with weight in it at work for a month. So I walked around the store at Burleigh. I put 5 kilos in it. So it's 6.5 kilos, and I walked for a month while I worked, and I worked a lot in that month, and just had it on all day just to get used to it. And I still, for the first week or two, just had lots of twinges in my pelvis and my lower back, and it was just that consistent having the pack on. And so, but it settled down. So it's I think training really helps, but on the job training probably is. It's easier if you've done some before, because if you just set out without having done anything, I think it would be pretty tough. I live in Moolumbar, so I've got lots of hills, so I walk a lot of hills, a lot of days, and I think walking hills really helps. You don't have to have weight, but I think just get used to doing hills and just get your fitness up, because hills are great to get your fitness up and strengthen your legs and all of those things, just to make your trip better. Break your boots in. So I had a man come into the shop. I was in the shop last week, and someone came to get me, because as soon as they hear Camino, they often come and get me. And he wanted help with boots and multiple other things. But I said, are you having shoes or boots, which is another very contentious issue. And he said, what did you wear? And I said, I wore Topo boots. These are my 900 Ks later. And he said, right, I'll try those on. I said, when are you going? And he said, Saturday. And so I said, well, I would recommend these. They were right for me. But anyway, so he bought those, bought rain pants, bought rain jacket, bought just all of these other things. He was just so relaxed about it. But I mean, it's actually not, what not to do. But having said that, I think a lot of people really overthink it. I was chatting to someone just earlier, like, don't overthink it. And I did a little video of myself in St John just as the night before I was about to leave, and I often play it back and look at it, and what I say is, I don't know what I was worried about. It's just so easy. It was just effortless in the end to get there and get going. You sort of overthink all the things, the what if, or can I, can't I, should I, shouldn't I, will I, won't I, and read too many things and watch too many things. I think that's something that if you can not do that, I'd highly recommend not doing it. Just get your gear, get your plan and just go, because it is really easy. The infrastructure on the Frances is amazing. There's so many, coffee shops and albergues, and I got a SIM when I got to Barcelona. I just got a little, SIM card, so I had no problems with communication. There was nothing that was actually hard. It was just such a joy to be there, and I just think if you can go there being excited and positive and dying to do it, I think that's the best chance that you'll have of having a wonderful time. And if something goes wrong, it does. It's out of your control. Sorry, yes?
Yeah, just a question regarding the boots. So what was the variety of footwear that you saw people wearing?
I saw everything. Yeah. So the question was about boots. So I think there's three main things that I get asked about that are sort of not contentious, but are big decisions. And it's, I grabbed a pair of, so that's trail runners, or that's low, and that's high. So boots is one, boots or shoes. The other one would be raincoat and waterproof pants versus poncho. I get a lot of poncho, non-poncho questions, and whether to stop in Orison is a lot of the time the questions too. So do you want me to touch on boots? Or okay. So these Topos, I've got a big wide, these are men's, size 10 foot. I wear men's, so they're 9 men's. So for me, I was going in spring. It's quite all right. I was going in spring, which I was worried it would be really wet, because in Galicia that last third is often it just pours and pours and pours, and I'm not a big fan of wet feet, and so I decided I wanted waterproof boots so I didn't get wet feet. So if you're going to have waterproof boots, water won't get in, but water also won't get out. So you have to not let water get into your boot. So it's pointless having waterproof boots if you don't have waterproof pants, because you need waterproof pants that'll cover your boot, and then the water won't get in. And so I'd never had wet feet because I had a good Gore-Tex waterproof jacket, waterproof pants, and my boots. Everyone know what waterproof pants are? Yeah. Sorry? But water will still seep down between the gaiter and your leg. It won't. They won't keep all the water out. So there's boots and there's boots. I mean, I've got Scarpa leather, heavy, hardcore, multi-day walking boots, which I knew I didn't want because you do a lot of road walking and there's a lot of clomping that's pretty straight. So why something like the Ultras or the Topos, or there's a few others, they're really, really light. They've got heaps of spongy cushion, so they're ideal for walking on hard road for kilometre after kilometre. But they tick all the other boxes, and I didn't get hot feet in them. I also recommend merino socks. So that's the other, contentious issue is, do we wear a liner? Do we put Vaseline on our feet? Do we wear toe socks? Do we not? So I can only speak, as always, from personal experience, but I have smart wool, light cushion, crew height socks. They're my socks. I took 3 pairs of these, and that's all I had. I don't wear Injinji toe socks. I don't wear liners. They're merino, so they allow your foot to breathe. The top of them's quite thin, which is great, so the heat can get out, and then underneath they're quite cushioned, but they're still a light cushion, and I love them. I just took 3 pair. That's all I own. They're the only socks I own, and I have wide feet, but I don't have toe issues. So I know some people with toe issues, the Injinji are fantastic. Some people recommend liners, some don't, so there's no right or wrong. I think perhaps for me, the only bit of advice I could give you is don't mix it up. I think if you have a pair of shoes or boots and then you have a pair of socks that fit in well with those and you're really comfortable, just stick to what you've got. Don't have a toe sock one day and a thick one the next day and a liner the next day and I just think that's asking for trouble. I think once you've got a combo and you need plenty of room in your feet. The amount of people that I saw with their little toes nearly falling off because, like our foot is like that. Our foot isn't sort of like that. So a really narrow toe boxed shoe is kind of you're asking for trouble, I think. You need plenty of room and you need a thumb in front of your big toe so you've got room as the day goes on for your foot to swell. So choosing your shoes and socks, that's why I said don't underestimate good socks, because if you've got good ones and they work well in your shoe, you'll be right. And the alternative to wearing boots, waterproof pants. Is everyone right with waterproof pants? You know what waterproof pants are? Yeah, just black, long, ugly. Oh, okay. Wendy, could you grab me, sorry, just any pair of waterproof pants? Yeah, just the Patagonia he got. Is that me that keeps dinging? I'm sorry?
Sorry, you're definitely in the jacket and pants.
I am, yeah, just personally, yeah, but, so that's just a pair of waterproof pants. So you just literally, it's over here. So you just have your boots and then you put your pants on. They just cover, they'll just sit there. So the water just literally runs down your leg and onto the ground. Yeah, and then you just have your waterproof jacket and then So one day, having said all of that, in 40 days, I had one morning of rain. Literally. Sorry? April and May. I had literally one pouring morning of rain, but having said that, it was up the big steep hill up to O Sobrero and it was cloudy and misty and rain and wind and cold. And I just was having the time of my life, as you do. And this guy, John, the American, he was so lovely, but he walked past me and he was just miserable and has said to me to this day, I've never seen anyone so happy in rubbish weather. And I was warm and dry. And I said, you're wet and cold and I'm warm and dry. And that's purely the only difference. He went home and bought an Arc'teryx waterproof jacket, the same as I've got, because he just could not believe that I could be enjoying myself so much. And it's purely because I had the gear that kept me warm and dry. End of story, yeah. Sorry, yes. Sorry? So liners, yeah. Sorry, Wendy, you poor little thing, thank you. Just liners, yeah, or Injinji or whatever, yeah. So that's boots and remaining waterproof pants, boots. So poncho is what a lot of people have. You can get ponchos that will cover your pack as well. I don't wear a poncho, I don't have one, because I've got a good waterproof jacket. And the other thing I found was some of my days were really cold and windy, like you're just walking into this big headwind. And so I actually had my waterproof jacket on to keep me warm, not because it was raining. And so if I'd had a poncho, that would be the last thing I would have wanted on a day like that. So it kind of solved two problems it had two uses, and I guess that's what they say about when you're taking minimalist things, try and have things that will have two uses. So they're liners, so they're that's an Injinji liner, so Injinji are the toe socks, so you would wear that and potentially under another sock or another Injinji, and that's a liner too, they're Bridgedale, so they're just a really thin sort of silky sock that you wear, and hopefully that'll stop the friction between your foot and your boot, yeah. But I've never had them and I've never needed them. I got two blisters and then I got one little one. And I got my 2 blisters, and this is a good lesson because I walked, the day I walked into Logroño, It was my 30k day, and I just kept walking, and I had 2 hot spots, and I knew I had hot spots, and I was really cranky, and I just wanted to get there, and so I just kept walking. And then when I did stop, before I got in there, but finally I pulled up beside the road and I already had 2 blisters. So the lesson is, if you've got a hot spot, stop. So rock tape, so my 4-foot miracle worker things are rock tape, which is around somewhere. I've got it in here. So it's just tape, but the beauty of rock tape is it doesn't leave a sticky residue. So a lot of people say, oh yeah, I'm going to take this tape or that tape. But what happens is when you take the tape off, or as it wears off, it'll leave, you know, blobby, sticky things, and then that sticks to your sock. And then when you put your sock on, you're actually starting a new hotspot. So rock tape is amazing. And then the other thing I have is blister wool, which is around as well. It's in there, and it is just sheep's wool. And so you just put it on if you've got a hot spot, and it'll just cushion the area, and it sticks to your sock. You don't have to tape it on if you don't want to. So I always, so that's blister wool, and it's just literally like a blob of sheep's wool, and just pull a little blob off and roll it up and just put it against your foot. I used to get, because I got wide feet, I used to get a sore spot there, so I'd put a bit of blister wool and then put your sock on, and it sort of melds into your sock and stays in that spot and will take the pressure off. So blister wool's amazing. Then if you do get a blister, like I said, I got a couple. So the idea is everyone take a needle and thread. So you thread the needle through the blister from one end to the other. Let all the fluid out, because the worst thing is you'll end up with infected blisters if that top rubs off your blister. And often when they're full of fluid and you keep walking, when they burst, that you know, that big layer of skin on the top will just be sliding around everywhere, and then you're in trouble. So the idea is to pop the blister and leave the string in. So leave the thread of cotton in. You can just leave it in and have long ends, or you can actually tie it in a knot on the outside so it actually can't slide out. And just put a bit of blister wool or whatever you want, or a bit of gauze or something, just to soak the fluid up. And once it stops draining, then put a Compeed on it. So Compeed's my other, you know, saving grace. So Compeed, does everyone know what Compeed is? They actually sell it in vending machines over there. There's this, yeah, true. There's this one spot where there's like a Camino vending machine, and it had all sorts of, you know, pain relief and all sorts of foot things, and oh my God, condoms. God, I didn't need those. And all sorts of things, but it was amazing. Compeed. And you can get little, like narrowy Compeeds that they're pre-cut sort of, that are good for little toes, or big blob that's good for heels. So I love Compeed. I was giving it out. I was giving this stuff out like there was no tomorrow. So the Compeed is like a waxy, sticky, mushy thing, but it sticks on, and you leave it till it falls off, even if it's a week later. So leave the Compeed on, because your blister is going to be dry and healing in under that. And then when it's starting to, you know, peel off, which is a few days usually, just take the Compeed off. And if your blister's still troublesome, just put another Compeed on, but if not. So you get it at Coles and, you know, chemists and things, the Compeed. There's other brands, other names, I think, as well. So they're so rock tape, blister wool, Compeed, and a needle and thread are my go-to.
When you thread the cotton through your blister,
yep.
Did you say you wait till it's finished draining and then you take the cotton out?
Yeah, it'll just fall out. Yeah.
Once it's stopped.
Yeah, once it's stopped. Yeah, the question was about the thread through your blister. So once there's no more drainage, then just take your cotton away. Yeah, yeah. So that's that. Okay, can she do it? Yes. Okay, what to pack. So this is what I had in there. That's all my gear that I had. So we'll go through all of that when I finish talking soon. And so this is just quickly going through my Camino. So this is the first morning leaving St John, and so that's just the most exciting day of your life. It was just so good. It was so good. So one little hint is always set off with one less layer than you think you need, because if it's really cold, you can guarantee within, 20 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes, you're going to be stopping and wanting to take a layer off. So be cold when you start, especially there, because it's just straight up. So it's 600 metres of elevation in 9K, so it's pretty hectic. So I set off, met these two Aussies on the way up the mountain on the first day, and they too were in Santiago when I finished. It was great. So so then Orison the next day was up to Roncesvalles, and I stayed in the big monastery, and there's actually still snow all around in the monastery.
Now, if the Napoleon's route is closed,
Yep.
or it's not open or the weather closes
Yep.
it, how difficult is it to do the Valcarnos way too?
I don't know because I didn't do Val Carlos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there isn't much places to break the trip there. You can't go halfway.
Val Carlos would be halfway.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the question was if the Napoleon route is closed. So it opens usually at the beginning of April. So I went up on a Friday and it had only opened on the Monday. So I was able to go up over the mountain because you could see what the weather was like. That's halfway up. But if it's not open, and it also closed the weekend after because of a snowstorm, so they shut it. So you have to go Val Carlos. So St John and then Orison and then Roncesvalles, and then the other way would be Val Carlos, Roncesvalles, and it's sort of just a different route, and there's a bit more road walking, I think, but I don't. My daughter had to do that because it was closed when she went, but I don't know a lot about Val Carlos because I fortunately didn't have to go that way. I really wanted to go up over the Pyrenees if I could, and I was just lucky time-wise that it worked.
Yeah, just on that Orison, it's nearly always booked out, right? You've already booked out for the next couple.
I don't. You'd have to just get on and see if you can book a bed. Yeah.
There's a shuttle bus that runs back.
There is, and that's what I was.
People will go up, shuttle back to Staines,
Exactly.
morning shuttle back to Orison and start their walk if you don't want to do the whole 27 km.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's another thing that some people that I've been speaking to lately, and it's round about this spot where the bus comes. There's a road that goes up to about there, and so you can book an extra night in St John, go up, get the shuttle back, and then it'll take you back up to that spot the next day if you can't get a bed in Orison. Thank you for that. Yeah.
I'm going with my sister in September, and we looked, as soon as it opened,
Yep.
1st of April, we looked at Orison, and there are already only certain days you can book in
Right.
September.
Okay. So what's your name? Sorry.
Cotty.
Cotty is going in September, and she's already most of the days are booked out in Orison.
We're
So
booking our flight.
yep.
We haven't booked it yet, but according to what date.
So she's booking her flight depending on when she can get into Orison. But the shuttle is another option too. Yeah. Yeah.
There's always, and I looked at Border.
Albergo Border. Yeah.
And
It's BORDA if you want to look at it, and it's an old, like an old farm, and he's just turned it into accommodation, and it does the most beautiful meals, and it's just a really beautiful sense of, and like there was only maybe 15 of us there, I think, yeah, but the main albergue is much bigger, but you're literally up in the middle of the mountains and there's just this big building and nothing else there. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, did someone else?
Oh, and I was saying, like, how far in advance did you book? Like, we're thinking next year. Or should we start
Oh, I don't know next year whether you. When did they open?
They won't let you book anyway.
Too far in advance? Yeah.
So I'm looking at, we were looking in the first week of September,
Okay. Yeah.
and some of them, because my sister's, she's 6 years older than me, and so she doesn't want to sleep on a bunk.
All right.
And on one of the days, only upper bunks were available, so we crossed that day.
So there's only top bunks left on some of the days. So yeah,
4th
yeah.
of September.
4th of September. But it doesn't. It wouldn't even be open until April. So maybe later in the year they'd allow people to book for the coming. I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
Can you take a tent?
You can, but I'm sorry.
So they don't take bookings for the following year because I tried last year.
Oh, really?
I had to wait till they opened and I got straight away and booked.
Booked. Okay, so 1st of April-ish, you'd want to start looking because I know I went on the 7th and it opened on the 3rd. The whole Pyrenees opened. Yeah.
But keep an eye on the website and
Yep.
tell you when it's live.
Great.
So keep an eye on Facebook because I booked Border.
Yep.
I'm going in a couple of weeks, and I saw a Facebook post. Someone said, Border, Auberge Border is open for bookings, and this was in about January.
Okay.
So I was able to book for the 4th of May.
So in January, you could book for Border in May. That's fantastic. It's just great. It's so beautiful. Yeah. email.
them directly. I don't think you can do it through booking.com.
Yeah, on Wise Pilgrim too, another thing.
Yep.
I sent an email to Orison and it bounced back.
Okay, so when
the
it's
email on Wise Pilgrim
doesn't work.
wasn't working.
Okay, so Orison Wise Pilgrim email bounced. So try another way to contact them. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't book any. Like I said, I only booked one hotel, so I'm not sure. But I know some people end up staying in hotels because they can't get into an albergue. So that happens quite a bit. You know, they'll come into a town hoping to stay, go through all the albergues in that village or town, can't get anything. It doesn't mean you don't get accommodation, but you just have to pay more because you need a hotel. And the other option is a taxi to the next town and then come back the next morning and start from where you left off. So, I mean, there's options, but it's not ideal. Yeah. Sorry.
Do you know if Frances takes walk-ins, like for pilgrims?
It does, yeah. But it's doesn't always have. So does Frances take walk-ins? It does. A friend of ours, Tim, he lives in Costa Rica. We caught up with him recently in Costa Rica, met him on the Camino. But the day he did it, he walked the whole way in one day. Oh, and also when you get to the top, so you walk up to the very top and then there's a 200-metre drop down. And so you go left for death, right for life. So I don't know whether anyone knows that. He went left and it was just the worst thing he ever did, he said. After climbing all of that way and then down through, it's just through a forest. It's beautiful apparently. And if you're feeling fine, it's great, but it is just pretty treacherous depending on the weather. Then he got to Roncesvalles and there was no accommodation. They waited for like an hour in a massive line. There was no accommodation. He was just beside himself by the end of that. And then there was maybe 4 or 5 or 3 or 4 of them, he said, all in the same boat. And so they all then went and got a hotel room together, but that was their only choice, yeah. So walk-ins, yes, but only if there's not too many pilgrims. And that was the same, he left a day before me, so that's really, low season, and that's what happened to him, yeah.
Would the busiest time of the year, when would that be the peak time?
Well, I would have thought the middle of the year would be the peak time when it's summer, but I actually don't think it is, because I think a lot of people nowadays avoid that time because it's hot and they assume there's going to be a lot of pilgrims, and so they're sort of tending to go towards the spring or the autumn, and then that's busy as well. So when did
summer holidays where the Spanish are walking it?
Yeah, in the summertime when they're on holidays, yeah. So I don't know. It's so popular, I just honestly don't know that there's now a quiet time apart from the middle of winter, which is not ideal.
I have heard if you start during the middle of the month rather than the start or the end of the month, it's a bit quieter.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
everyone starts. Avoid that.
Yeah, I think it's like a natural, people say it takes about 30 days and people just automatically think start.
A monthly thing, whereas I started on the 7th, so that's kind of, in between. I was just showing this is the big accommodation in Roncesvalles, but this is the four of us with, every colour of the rainbow, nothing matching, and so that's normal. So if you look stylish, you kind of don't look like a true pilgrim. I used to have to wear my socks, because I only had the red sandals, and then I'd have my blue socks, and then my pink shirt, and then, anyway, so don't worry about how coordinated or how stylish you look, unless you're having luggage transfer and you have a few options. But Laura, that's Laura in every colour of the rainbow, and that's pretty typical. Roncesvalles down to Zubiri, so this is day 3, and already, 3 days in and you've just got this big, Camino family. So that was the Spanish boys and then the Irish girls, and you just meet so many amazing people and you run into them all the time. But those 2 groups were doing just a week, and then off they went, and a year later they'd come back and do the next week and then the next week, and there's a lot of people, a lot more local that can get there easily, that they do that sort of thing. So this bridge, and the good thing about the book, if one keeps it intact, is that you can read through, and it's really great. There's all these great little stories about the places that you're walking through. Like, if you walked your goats across there 3 times in the Middle Ages, they didn't get rabies, or, some sort of, there's all these, wild crazy stories, but it's really nice to have that sort of those little background history things about the places that you go. So I had 5 things on my hit list that I wanted to see and do and be. I'll show you later on. But walking out of Roncesvalles, and that says Santiago to Compostela 790, and I just remember seeing the photo of my daughter Mairead beside that sign, and that was just all I had in my head. So hopefully all of you will have that sign in your head and go, mate, I'm here, you know. It's pretty cool, yeah. And then into Pamplona, and Pamplona was just beautiful. The Basque country is gorgeous, but there's a cafe in Pamplona called Cafe Iruña. It's gorgeous, and the tapas there, and it's just a beautiful, really oldie worldy place, and it's really worth going there in the evenings just for a drink and some tapas. So Ponte Lorena is a beautiful town. That was my next stop. And just as you leave Ponte Lorena, there's 2 things that I think are worthwhile. There's the Iron Forge. I'm sure some of you have heard of the Iron Forge. So you just walk past this shop on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, and he's hammering away, and that he makes, and so most people get the shell. So, and then a little further along is the fountain with the red wine. So so you just take a little thing if you want to have a drink, or you can drink out of your shell, or just something to have. 2 of us shared a little container and we had it that evening. But apparently that winery puts 100 or 200 litres of red wine into the fountain every day, and so you just come pour a little bit. Sorry? What was that? Someone's going to be greedy and take a whole bottle. But it's just all those little things that you just look forward to. They're just iconic things. So there's me in my rain jacket, not because it's raining, but just to keep the wind and the cold out. Yeah. Cold wind, so a buff is something that I recommend having, and a beanie. I kept the beanie for a few weeks and then I donated it because it was warmer and I didn't want it. Albergue, that's a sort of a private albergue, and that's sort of how close some of the albergue beds are to each other. So earplugs and an eye mask are an absolute essential. It was just fantastic.
Can I just ask a question about the dorms? Are they always mixed?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mixed dorms was the question. That's another sort, so not actually bunk beds. It just varies, and a lot of towns have got a beautiful chapel or a cathedral, and you can go to a pilgrim's mass, which is lovely, and after the mass they'll call the pilgrims up to the front, and Father will bless the pilgrims, and that's pretty special. I really love that. And that's my old dad. He turned 90 while I was on the Camino. He's since died, he had cancer. But yeah, that's me talking to Dad on his 90th birthday, which was pretty special. And that's just pilgrims getting in the afternoon, and everyone goes and grabs a chair and sit out in the square and just have a great time. It was just great. Meseta, so that's what the Meseta's like. It's long and flat, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I had ear-poddy things and had a book, and I only listened to one book the whole time. That's the only time I put my book in, because I just found people to talk to, or I'd just do some birding, or I'd just, cruise along and pop into little places. Heaps of stalks on the tops of the cathedrals, which I loved. I used to put my feet up every night when I got in, so that's worth just giving your feet a bit of a rest. So when you arrive at an albergue, the first thing they'll ask you to do is take your boots off and put your poles away. So there's usually a rack to put your boots and your poles, so you can't go in until you've done that. So I always just kept my sandals on the top of my pack in a plastic bag. So as soon as I got in, I got my sandals out, put them on, put my boots away, pay, get your passport stamped, and then have your shower, and then go out and have a good time. Yeah.
Did you have any issues with theft?
None. No, except these pants. So these are the pants. These are just I only took 2 pairs. I took 1 pair of hiking pants, which was these, and 1 pair of tights. The question was theft. I was just cautious. Like I said, I never let that out of my sight in terms of, but one night when I stayed, it was the one I saw a photo of before, and so washing, I just hand washed my, socks and undies and whatever each evening, and then once a week I'd go to like a laundry where I could put my jacket and my hiking gear and my sleeping bag liner, and I could put everything through a wash. But this one day I put my few little bits and pieces on a line out the back, and when I got back after dinner there was nothing there. My pants just were nowhere to be found, which is concerning when you actually only have one pair of pants. And it was a bit late-ish and everyone was sort of in their rooms apart from a few girls that were sorting out their own laundry. And I just said, has anyone seen a pair of blue Arc'teryx pants? Anyone seen it? No one. So I started going into the various rooms in the dorm and asking. No one had seen them. And then I walked into one room. There was quite a few, maybe 6 or 8 beds. They were women. They were actually separated, that one. And the first bed I walked to, on the top bunk, I could see this pair of blue pants hanging off the end of the bunk. And I said, they look like my pants. I said to the girl, are they your pants? I said, because I've lost mine and I knew I had a bit of cash in the pocket. And I said, and so I looked in the pocket, of course, and I had cash in the pocket. So, benefit of the doubt. I said, look, I'm really sorry. You've obviously accidentally picked my pants up. Can I come and help you find yours? So out we went to the loungy area and started looking, and there was nothing left. And then she said to me, oh, actually, I didn't wash mine. So that was the... Yeah, you reckon? It's years of negotiations. But anyway, so I've got my pants back, thank God, because I love them.
So if you are washing like every night or second
Yep.
night, where do you hang it?
Just around your bed, literally. Like I said, sometimes they've got little lines out in the back. A lot of
We've got my little Cedar Summit
clothesliney things.
big clothes.
Yeah. String it up.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, string it up. Yeah, so some of them had lines in the backyard so you could hang your things there, and others I just, draped it around the bunk or on the end of my... I'm a top bunk sleeper, so yeah, on the corners of the bunk or whatever, on the window latch or something, whatever you could do to get your stuff dry.
Sleeping with the...
Sleeping?
Or your sleeping bag because of bed bugs? Or...
Yeah, so that's another one of the to sleeping bag or not to sleeping bag. So I sleeping bagged. So in the bottom of my pack, and this is what I highly recommend if you're going to, because I was going in, well, it was snowy when I went, so it was pretty cold, and bed bugs are obviously a big issue, and I didn't want to use the blanket. So most albergues will have, so if it's a less expensive albergue, they'll have like that disposable sheety stuff. So they'll give you that when you go in, a pillowcase and a sheet in the disposable-y stuff. But then they'll have a blanket on the end of the bed, which I preferred not to use because of bed bugs mainly. And I never had any, and no one I walked with ever had bed bugs. There was just, they weren't an issue, maybe because it was colder and earlier in the season. But anyway, I decided to take my own blanket. And so in the bottom of my pack, I've got a separate section in the bottom. I'm a dry bag queen. I love dry bags. So if you have a sleeping bag, anything that's down, you've got to have it in some sort of waterproof sack. So I just had this dry bag, and everything for the night is in the dry bag. So I just get in the evening, undo the bottom of my pack, set my bed up, and then do that in reverse in the morning. So I had a really light little down blanket. So this is my sleep system. So I just had, so that's a rumple. So that's just a light, really, really light little down blanket. Yeah, and that's all I had, and it was great. However, what we also have now is this, which we didn't have, and I have just recommended it to so many pilgrims because it's kind of like that. It only weighs 500 grams, but the beauty of it is it's got a zip down the side, so you can turn it into a sleeping bag if you're cold and want to be cosy, and it's got a drawstring at the top and a drawstring at the bottom. So you can really, and it's only $200 and something, and it's down and it's light. It's just amazing. So had we had this, I would have got this over that, but I still love that. But sometimes I'd wake up and it'd just slid off me onto the ground because it's really shimmery and light. But yeah, so this thing it's called a Traveller. Cedar Summit Traveller, and so yeah, if you just...
Fall season.
Sorry?
Is that good fall season?
Well, if you're in Albergue, the question was, is it good for all seasons? But it's not that cold in the albergues, and I guess it depends what time of year. So it's not a 4-season by any means. It's only a +7. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to sleep outside and it's -10, you need a -10. Yeah, but that's the Traveller, and I love it. And yeah, a lot of people have bought it as their option if they want to take a blanket or sleep, but yeah, not necessary. So I have that. And a sleeping bag liner is an absolute must. So if it's not cold enough to need a blanket, just sleep in your liner. But I slept in my liner every single night just so I wasn't on theirs. I've got a new one. So it's just that. So it's just, and in you go, and that's all you have to do. And then I also had pyjamas, which was a luxury maybe, but I don't like sleeping in the clothes I'm about to wear the next day, especially when I've only got one. So just an old with holes in it icebreaker t-shirt and a teeny little pair of just cottony boxes that were really light. But at least if you're getting up in the night and going to the toilet and you've got other people in the room, you don't feel too self-conscious. And then I had my gear ready for walking the next day, yeah.
Is the liner a silk liner?
Silk and cotton, that one is, yeah. So I think they're about 70 something dollars. I mean, some of the new ones are 150, 175, the silk, but these are old ones that feel just so lovely, and they're not nearly as expensive as the others, but they're great. And the other, yep, so eye mask, and I did have my, oh yeah, so I didn't take very good earplugs, but I would really recommend getting good ones. Those little, foamy things are just not going to cut it. Yeah, so believe me, and I'm sure you all know. And I did take, not this pillow, this is my fancy one, but I took a pillow. I like to have a second pillow, so I took, they all had a pillow in the albergues, but the second pillow, or if theirs was just rubbish, at least I had one. So this is just a little super lightweight one with a bit of extra mushy stuff. So I actually take this through hiking nowadays, but it's doesn't weigh much. It takes up a little bit of room. So that was just a really good system. Bottom of my pack, all my sleeping gear, all dry. Don't trust your pack cover. I mean, everyone needs a pack cover, but if it really, really pours, water's going to seep in through your pockets, seep in through your straps and into your gear. So anything you don't want to get wet, you have to have it in a dry bag.
A bit of a simple question, but you were saying that your plugs for your ear were no good now. That's what I've got, those all foamy things.
Yeah.
What would you suggest? Like they're not something that obviously...
Yeah, I've got these little corkscrew sort of ones. They seem to would you mind just passing them back? Thank you. They sort of corkscrew in, and they're like silicone-y stuff, and they're really good.
There's these ones that they look like a shark egg, you know how they
Yeah.
and then it sort of, there's a little
Ah,
thing that goes back into your ear.
right,
And they get stuck in there.
right.
They're only about $8.
Yeah.
Just from the chemist.
Where are they from?
And food. Food. I'm not a foodie, but yeah. Just so many beautiful places. This was a lady and a man, older, with 2 donkeys, 2 dogs. They had their side saddle things as well. And when we walked past them, he had a cat here as well. So we had the whole menagerie. It was just so great. Just beautiful places beside the road, and so stay, yes, take your binoculars, do some birding. This was gorgeous. So this was yeah. And actually the man, it was a little village before a bigger place, but it was at the end of the Metta. But he sort of checked your date of birth when you arrived, and if you were old, he put you up there, which was really nice. And it was so lovely. It was just his attic, and it was really high. And when you look out the windows, there was a cathedral right beside, but the stalks were literally outside the window. It was so gorgeous. So halfway, I'd made halfway by then. And we stayed here in Carrion de los Condos. We stayed at the nunnery. It was just so worth staying there. It was so beautiful. So they took you into the backyard and had music sheets, so they gave out the music and they played, and then everyone could have a turn at singing a song, like Waltzing Matilda or, whatever from whatever country. Yeah, it was so lovely. it was very, very basic albergue, you know, in terms of just lots of beds and big dorm style, but it just had the most amazing feel. And so if you can mix it up, you know, where you stay, sometimes in fancier ones and sometimes less, it's just really nice to, and there's a lot of this, you know, you all, as I said, you all messaged, where are you? But my funny story is, so these guys, Henk and Bart, they're the two Dutch guys that I met here, and then we actually walked together the rest of the time. But this guy, John, he's from Canada, and I met him coming into Burgos, and then I met him, again, we all had dinner that night. And then when we got to Lyon, which is 300 k's to go, it was his birthday, and so we had a big celebration and all went out for tapas. And that's the last time I saw him, until I went to Porto when I finished the Camino, and I was walking through the streets of Porto on my own and ran into him, and we've been a couple ever since. How's that? It's amazing. So the Camino provides. When you least expect it. I know. I just never in a million years. I just had the most amazing time. Like, I've been on my own for 14 years and him for 8 years, and he lives in Canada, he lives in Ontario. But yeah, we just come backwards and forwards now all the time and just go on all these amazing adventures. He's here now, we're going to Nepal next week. Then he'll go back to Canada. I'm going there for 3 months once he goes back, and we're going to go to Portugal and walk the Portuguese. And yeah, it's just the loveliest story, and he's just the nicest guy. He's just lovely. He's just a sweetie. I'm so lucky. Then sorry? What? Did you hear what he said? I'm sorry I ever said that. Oh, stop! It's in the secret section. No.
Deep breath.
I'm sorry, is this a sensible question? I'm sorry?
Yeah, it's a sensible question.
Good.
I just want to know, where did you go?
Where did...
Didn't see him until Porto.
Oh yeah, he got COVID. So just after we left Lyon, unbeknownst to me, because I never saw him again, but he got COVID and had to stay a few days in Puerto Marin, and so everyone got ahead, and then, you know, everyone just does their own thing, and so that was it. And so once you lose your family or you get behind, because I got a shin splint, which was so painful. I left my left shin and I had it for about 2 weeks, and it was really agonising. And here's me, gave away all of my Voltaren and hardcore drugs to someone else who had a shin splint weeks before, gave away everything. I'm not going to have any injuries, got this shin splint, but someone else had it and gave, you know, it's just that pay it forward. And so I lived on ice. Every time I'd stop, I'd get ice, because what you're supposed to do is rest. If you have a shin splint, rest and ice. So there's no way I was resting because I didn't want to lose my family. And so I just used to ice it, Voltaren gel, Voltaren tablets, Nurofen, whatever I needed. And then after about 2 weeks, it just resolved, which was really lucky. But that's the only thing I had. But it wasn't fun, I must say.
Were you able to buy stuff like Voltaren and stuff, or, you know, those kinds of medicines along the way?
The question is, can you buy medication along the way? I don't think any of the harder, you know, strength medications you can. You can just buy, you know, basic things. But yeah, ibuprofen, Panadol, these sort of things. But I'd taken the Voltaren 50s, which, but you can buy, I know here you can buy 25, so you just take 2 25s over the counter, which makes no sense, but yeah.
So we're going to go with that.
Sorry?
You're a nurse. So
I am. Yeah, go with the Voltaren.
If you have a prescription,
Yep.
you'd be able to fill it, wouldn't you?
I guess. Does anyone know? I don't take any medication, so I don't know. Can you get scripts made up over there? I doubt it.
Yeah.
I filled my scripts. I have a letter from my doctor.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
I need, I'm completely self-sufficient.
Great. Yeah.
From home, I get a script.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So yes. So this place, hospital. So something that you'll see on Wise Pilgrim or in the book, is the green route or the standard route. So often there'll be an option for a few Ks or even a day or even 2 days, there'll be an alternate route, and they're usually the green route, and it takes you through, you know, more countryside or up over a mountain. Coming into Burgos, definitely take the green route. It's 7 Ks out, and if you don't take it, you walk 7 Ks along, no, through the outskirts of the town, like just through suburbia, past the airport, through the suburbs. If you take the left, the green route, it's actually along the river the whole way. That's where I met John. He was just along the river this day. Yeah, so take the green route. And another one, it's up over a beautiful countryside that there was just hardly anyone up there, and it wasn't scary. It was really well signposted. But yeah, take the green route if you're sick of walking along road or want to change. Yeah.
Coming into Burgos or on the way out?
Into Burgos, yeah, coming into Burgos. So don't go past the airport. And this town, hospital, I just loved it. It's this there used to be medieval jousting over here, and oh God, it was just gorgeous, this beautiful old place. River's just here, but it's on the green route. Like, you have to actually do a 2-day sort of off the main Camino, but I highly recommend going into it. Another major landmark is the Iron Cross, as I'm sure you've heard of, the Cruz de Ferro. So I took 2 stones. You know the idea of taking a stone and you leave something behind. And I went to see Mum and Dad in the nursing home, and I said, have you got anything that you'd like me to leave, you know, that's significant? And with that, Dad went to take his wedding ring off. An old jokester. But anyway, but Mum, God love her, she said, oh, I've got this stone in my ward, in your little dresser. They're just in the nursing home, they don't have much stuff. But it was this stone, because they'd only ever been on one overseas holiday. They're dairy farmers and, you know, lived in Grafton their whole lives. But they'd been to the Mediterranean, and Dad had gone diving down and got this little stone off the bottom of the ocean and brought it up, and Mum couldn't swim, given it to Mum. And she'd written on it, you know, from Neil to Faye and the date, and it was so beautiful, and she gave me that. And so that's what I left at the Cruz de Ferro. Yeah, and you'll laugh, the other thing I left was my own stone. And the thing that I decided I needed to let go of and leave behind, because that's the idea of leaving it, was the fact that I'd been on my own for so long, and that it was okay to be on my own though. Like, I just... But at the time it was really sad. But that's a true story. But I just always felt like, not a loser, but you know how you just think, oh God, you know... But yeah, so I just sort of thought I just need to be comfortable with being single and being on my own and living my best life. And it doesn't mean I'm any less of a person because I don't have someone. That's what I needed to get my head around, because I always felt somewhat like I was less of a person because I didn't have a successful marriage, and you know, and so that's what I left there, and I went ahead for a couple of weeks. And the rest is history. So anyway. I'm sorry?
I said you probably thought you should have dropped that stone.
That's right. 13, 14 years too late, I dropped it. That's right. Sorry.
So if people are constantly leaving things there...
They take them away every so often. Yeah. It's surprising. It's just literally by the roadside. You know, you just walk along. But that's the only morning I got up before dawn. I wanted to be there for dawn. Every other morning I just got up when I felt like it and was up and organised and out by 7 something. But that morning I had my head torch and got up, got organised. And the boys, I was walking with the boys by this stage, the 2 Dutch guys, and they met me up. I waited for them up there. But it was really moving, and there were a lot of people and a lot of tears and it's really quite a special place, the Cruz de Ferro. So yeah, I don't mean take it seriously, but you'll get a lot out of it if you make it a meaningful place.
Lynne,
Yeah.
can I just ask you,
Yes.
Going back, it says there by far the most difficult day. Was that emotionally?
It was, and because I had a shin splint, so that was my hardest day. A, because of the emotional part at the beginning, but the rest of the day is downhill, really steep on shale. And I've got the dodgiest now. I've got screws in my knees. They dislocated when I was younger. I was born with congenital malformation, and they've got screws in them to keep them aligned. And downs are really bad for me.
So
and
it's
so
worse than coming down off the
Absolutely, yeah. It was just a shale. You know, if you're on that shaly ground, it's really hard. So, I'm a pole user, obviously. Hiking poles are just, I reckon, they're lifesavers. For 3 reasons I recommend them for, I mean, in general people do. Just your stability. They take a lot of the weight, 25 to 30% they say of the load that you're carrying if you're using poles. I think another thing is posture as well, because as the day goes on and your pack's getting heavier, you know, whereas if you've got poles, it actually keeps, you know, your back straight and you're more upright. And for me, it's my brain. Like, because my knees are so dodgy, I've got to kind of watch where I put every step. But if you've got the poles, you know that, you know, you don't have to think so much about where you're going, because if you do slip, the poles will stop you from falling. So, yeah, I use poles always. And because I've got numbness in this hand and it hates being down, so the poles are great. So even if I'm going through a town, I'll still have my poles because it just keeps my arm up. And the other thing is, make sure if you've got poles without tips that you buy tips before you leave, because you will drive everyone insane walking through the city with the steel tips going ching, 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 ching. And I saw quite a few people with one tip on and one tip off, and I was going, why would you walk with only one? Until it happened to me. And because there's grates in the street, and if you put your pole down the grate and pull it back up, the tip goes down the grate. So you've got to carry spare tips because you're going to end up losing them in the street.
On the way?
Sorry?
Obviously if it goes up.
I'm sure you could, but you know, it's a nuisance to have to source a shop that sells tips that work on your black diamond poles or whatever. So I just took a spare set, yeah.
With the poles, I mean, should you have the pole with a hand grip?
Personal choice. Could you grab me a couple, like the Zeds and the telescopic and a cork and a non, and I'll do a quick pole talk. How are we going? Oh God, keep talking. So this is so cute. So you come in and everyone had to put their boots down there. Yeah. That's just, yeah, putting the thread through a blister. Another side trip is, so we stayed in La Faba, which I absolutely love. So Ocebrero, it's a big climb up to Ocebrero. What day? Day 29. But halfway up that mountain is a little place called La Faba. It's tiny, thank you. And they have a beautiful little chapel and an albergue, and then a little tiny town. And we stayed there, and it was one of the loveliest nights. Just the setting is beautiful, and you've halved the mountain. So Herrera, I think, is at the bottom, and then Ocebrero is at the top, but we halved it, and it was really, really lovely to stay there.
Was that with 2 gay guys at the albergue?
No, it was run by a religious, I can't remember where they were from, but yeah. And the other one, this is, oh God, what's it called? The monks. Samos, yes. So Samos, S-A-M-O-S, is a green route as well. It's off the main track, but it's really worth going. So we went to Samos, we went through the monastery, the monks give you a guided tour. There's still a few monks that actually live and work there. And then we went to the Mass there, and it was a really lovely side trip to go through Samos rather than just go straight ahead for the day. So that's another little tip. No, it was from A to B, but we just went that way rather than that way, yeah. And I just love this. So you just literally walk through people's farms, you know. So there was cows and dogs and cow poo and all sorts of things, and you just walk through the villages. It's just so lovely. That's rock tape. That's you know how I said I have that wide foot, so I just put rock tape and plus or minus blister wool, and then obviously Bart had dodgy heels, so he had it on. The other thing, so you would all know that Saria is the last 100, and it turns into Pitt Street.
Is that an easy walk up? Yes.
So you get a passport if you do the last 100, and we found there were a lot of busloads of school kids, there were busloads of tourists, there were just just doing the last 100. Tourist shops along the road. It just was such a difference. It's a real culture shock, having done 700 Ks in the wilderness, like I said, walking through cow poo, and the next thing you've just got wall to wall. And I'm a really fast walker, and if I can't just walk straight ahead, it just gets me frustrated. But you have to embrace it. I mean, it's everyone's Camino, and it only took a day or two, and then, you know, you'd stop and chat to some of the kids, and they were just gorgeous. And, you know, they weren't sitting at home on their iPad. They were out carrying a heavy pack and doing some Camino walking. So that was something that we just had to get our heads around, and leave early in the morning, because they don't get out that early. So if you get out ahead of them in the morning, then, you know, it's no biggie. But things like when you got to a cafe, you just couldn't get a coffee or something to eat, because there's just hundreds of people at the cafe. And toilets. Do you want to talk toilets for a sec? Yeah. There's so many things. Obviously, the worst thing you can do is go to the toilet beside the track and leave paper, which thankfully I never really saw much of at all. I think for two reasons, particularly on the Frances, there's lots of little cafes and lots of places that you can go to the toilet. I think there was only a couple of occasions where I had to, you know, duck beside the track. And so there's a few options. Like, too much information I know, but I just wear a panty liner, so I don't need a tissue. And so that, to me, saves having to worry about toilet paper, and, you know, so that's what I do. And the other thing is, which I just discovered in the shop, so these things are called a cooler cloth, and it's a Camino one. I didn't realise. So today I just found that over on the shelf, which is so cool. So that's a little invention, which is meant to be like a tissue, but you just pop it away, and then you rinse it out in the evening, or hang it on the side of your pack, rinse it, and that's what you use. So that's the toilet situation.
Did you see many have something like
No.
that on their backpack?
No. Very few, but we've only just gotten them in. But I know they've been in the States for quite a while. I've got a friend in the States. And
Ordering those for my trip, because I'm leaving in a couple of days.
Yep.
And no one had them.
Right.
And I ended up just buying, when cooler cloth became a thing, obviously, and then I ended up just ordering a 2-pack off Amazon.
Okay. Yeah. So it's an option. I personally wouldn't take one, because that's not the way I roll. Or even if I had tissues or toilet paper, I'd just have a snap lock bag and use it, and then dispose of it when you could. But whatever you do. And funnily enough, the one day I was walking along and needed to duck behind a tree where there wasn't that many, but I thought, oh, that's a perfect place. I went to the tree, and there was tissue paper on the ground. I couldn't believe it. I just thought, seriously? Yeah. Anyway, just getting back, sorry, I just realised I hadn't done the opposite of a boot. A waterproof boot would just be a trail runner. So they're your two options. So this will get wet, definitely. They're not waterproof, but the water will go in and out. And if you've got, you know, like merino socks or whatever, your feet will dry as you walk along, or you have wet feet all day, and that's just all there is to it. But a lot of people prefer this. The only thing I will say that I did notice that Bart stopped every 5 minutes to get a stone out of his shoe. He had low shoes, and I didn't have to nearly as often. So that's the only thing. I think you're more likely to get things in your shoe if you wear a shoe as opposed to a boot. But it's totally a personal preference.
You can wear gaiters.
You could wear little gaiters over those, yeah, for sure. You can buy those little, really thin little light ones. Yeah, when I did the Great Ocean Walk on sand, I had those just to stop the sand coming in. So it's probably a worthwhile trick, definitely.
Lynne, did
Yes.
you take rest days?
No,
Not at all.
not one. No, the question...
Wow.
Yeah. So the question was, did I have any rest days? And I had no plan whatsoever when I set off, and I thought I probably would in Leon or Burgos or, you know, one of the places where there's lots to see. But in the end, I didn't. I walked for 36 consecutive days.
Because you wanted to keep up with your family?
No,
Or is that
not at
because
all.
you
I
didn't
just
need-
loved it. I just loved walking every day. And some days I only walked maybe 12 or 15 Ks to where I wanted to be, and then I'd spend the rest of the day, you know, walking around, looking at the town and the cathedrals, or I'd set off quite late knowing, because I'm a quick walker, I can do, you know, 5 Ks an hour pretty easily. So if I've only got 10, I can do it in 3 hours. So I wouldn't leave till lunchtime and spend the morning just, you know, wandering around and having a look at the cities. And so I would have happily stopped and stayed, you know, for a night extra anywhere along the way, but I just didn't. And I didn't feel like I needed to. And then I had 3 nights when I got to Santiago, but because all the family were coming in, or some were already there, some were leaving. And then I set off and had 4 consecutive more days to Finisterre. Yeah, but it was great.
Safety for a solo female on the trail?
Absolutely. Safety is a question. I actually just never, ever felt unsafe. There was never a time where I thought, you know, there was anything suspicious or dodgy or, yeah. I guess I was always around other pilgrims. It's very pilgrim orientated on the Camino, and I stayed in places where there were other pilgrims. I didn't stay off in a different area of a city where there were, you know, less of the mainstream sort of pilgrim people around. So yeah, but I never had a safety issue, but I did keep my personal belongings safe. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so charging, one bit of advice I took, because I'm trying to, you know, save grams, took quite a short charger for my phone, but sometimes when you stay in the albergues, the charger's actually above your head. so you know, so you take a long cord, but everywhere I didn't have any problem with charging, but I would take a longer cord. And what I did, I bought, when I got to Barcelona, I bought a local plug, but just with USB. Because I only needed USB, I didn't need the 3-prongy thing. So I just bought at a little, just convenience-y sort of place, I just bought a plugger-inner, and all I had was my ears and my head torch and my phone. And so I just got a plugger-inner from Spain with a USB, and that was, yeah, that worked fine, yeah. Water bottles, hydration is the question. So I started off with this, there's a Camelback, and I had a Nalgene, a 1 litre Nalgene, and so that's what I started off with. And probably a third of the way through, I gave my Nalgene to a lovely little Irish girl who liked it, and just survived with this the whole rest of the time. I mean, there are so many places to stop for water. The cafes will just fill your water up. There's fountains, and they'll have a big X on the fountains if it's not potable, yeah. And so, I'm a pretty good drinker, but that was literally all I needed, yeah. So I've just, I've got the new one. We've got these new ones in, which I've got for Nepal and for the Portuguese. And the only difference is that I like is that this thing now is covered. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so on my old guy, where you drink from's not covered, but this one I kind of like. And I'm a straw, not everyone's a straw drinker, it just depends what you like. But I just find if you have a litre, if you have a fat litre, it's actually chunky on your side. I like a taller, slimmer guy. Yeah, so that's all I did, was just water bottles.
Is that your first day? You would have survived on that size water bottle?
No, I had the 2. I had 2 for the first, probably I reckon, couple of weeks, yeah.
That's a long stretch up a hill.
Oh yeah, no. No, I had 2, which was 2 litres nearly, yeah. And then, like I said, once I got where, you know, there was places all the time, and I think there was a 12K stretch, we went through the wilderness, and I just bought a single-usey sort of one, which is a bit naughty, I know, but I just did, just as a backup on that occasion, yeah. Someone else had a question?
When you went through the Metta,
Yep.
is there enough places to get to fill your bottles up?
Yeah. Oh. So Castro here is 1 water stop, and then whatever that lovely one with the up high in the ceiling was, yeah. And it wasn't a long stretch either. A big hill and then a long flat thing, and then we were there, yeah, I think. Was there one other question? Sorry.
Did you find the language barrier an issue at all?
Not so much. Most, you know, if you could say café con leche, por favor, or una cerveza, or, you know, beer and coffee, that's all you need. as long as you made a bit of an effort. Like I did Duolingo and tried to learn on some YouTube thing when I was going in 2020, and then didn't sort of revisit it enough. I really wished I had more. But everyone on the Frances particularly, you know, it's really not that big an issue. But like I said, when you're trying to talk on the phone and book accommodation, but a lot of them could speak just enough English to be able to book. And a lot of the albergues said, let us know if you're not in by 3 p.m. So if you are going to be later, because they obviously hold your bed, and if you're walking and it's taking you longer, just give them a call and let them know to hold your bed, but you're just going to arrive later, yeah. And some people take a bladder. I'm just not a bladder. I mean, I have a bladder, I love a bladder, but when I've got a lot of stuff in my pack, I'm not a bladder user, because I just find by the time you've shoved so much stuff in your pack, you've got to get everything out to get the bladder in, and then, yeah, so I think water bottles for me, when I've got a full pack, water bottles are a bit easier, yeah. So Saria, like I said, I would advise you to get up earlier and avoid the crowds and just embrace the Camino. It's... What?
You don't have to do your 100 k's from Saria to Santiago. You can do it anywhere.
Right, but I think a lot of people will probably walk into Santiago. I mean, there's nothing like walking into Santiago, and if you're only going to do 100, I don't know why you wouldn't. Yeah. And then I was there. So these two, like I said, I'd met them in Albergo border, which is pretty amazing. And then there they were, waiting for us they got there the day before us, and the boys and I got there. And then you go to the pilgrim's office and you get your pilgrim's, that's what you get at the end. And I've got 3, because I've got Finisterre has its own. So that's my certificates for having, so exciting. So great, so great. And the other amazing thing so coming into there, I started a WhatsApp group called The Last Supper, because I knew there was quite a few of us going to be there. And so on that night when we got in, 15 of us all had dinner together, and we went to the Mass. And the Botafumeiro does not swing every day, so it's the luck of the draw. And I did hear that sometimes groups pay for it. Is that your understanding? Yeah. So we were so lucky, it swung. And if you're in the church, so the priest is here and this is the altar, go in the side sections, not in the main part of the church, because it swings from side to side. So if you go in the side sections, it will swing literally over your head, and it goes like 70 k's an hour. Oh my God. So it doesn't happen till the end of the Mass. So you don't kind of know till the end of the Mass whether it's going to happen. And so you sort of get all the way through Mass. And then as soon as I saw them get up in their red robes and head towards, I was just like, it was just amazing. And I went to Mass again. I stayed there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Went to Mass again on the Sunday, but they didn't have it on the Sunday, so I was really lucky. And then that was it. So the boys went back to the Netherlands and everyone went home, and I was on my own. So then I walked the next 4 days to Finisterre.
Planned to do that?
I'd hoped to. It wasn't, like I said, everything was up in the air. I never made, like I said, I was very loose with my arrangements, and I just... I just thought I'll wait and see. And I had 2 spare days. I knew I had a couple of spare days, and I thought I might go to Portugal. And on the first night I met a lady from Canada, and she told me about that albergue in Porto and said, try and get a bed in it. And I thought, well, if I can get a bed in that albergue, I'll go to Porto, and if I can't, I won't. But I did, thank God. So that's it. That you get to the end of the world. It's pretty great. Yeah.
What was the albergue in Porto called that you were?
Peregrino's something like very much a pilgrimy sort of name. Yeah, I can tell. Albergo, Peregrino. Yeah, just send me a message and I'll send you a message back. And then, so this is my hit list. I really looked forward to seeing these 5 things, and I think it just gives you that little bit of, motivation or incentive or a sense of achievement when you tick another one off. You go, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. It's really great. So that 790k, that's at Roncesvalles, so that's when you're just taking off. There's leaving Pamplona, the iron, pilgrims on the top of it's a decent climb up the top, but the weather, look at the weather. God, we were so lucky. So the iron pilgrims, there was a Fuente Divino, I can't speak, but Fuente Divino. Yeah, so that's the fountain where you just, put your glass there, the Cruz de Ferro and then the Botafumeiro. So got them all. So I was just really, really happy. And then I went to Porto. Oh, so what have I said? Blisters we've talked about, booking ahead that first 3 days. I took a notebook, which I was really happy I did. So just a little notebook like this, and what I wrote down is just each of the nights where I stayed. I wrote so if anyone wants to know my top 5 albergues or something like that, how many Ks I walked, and then I just wrote one little sentence about something that was particularly amazing about that day and what bird I saw that day. Because I was doing bird a day. I do this challenge called Bird a Day. You start on the 1st of January and you have to find a different bird every single day of the year until you get to a day you can't find a new bird that you haven't already used. So a few years ago I got to 300. Wow. Which was pretty cool. Yeah, so that was that. So I just put little, just little bits and pieces in there that I'm really glad I've got that. So this is the Briley book, but that's the Finisterre. So I bought that just for the last 4 days. So that's what it's like. It's really worth having, just really, really clear maps, distances, bits and pieces, and the elevation is really handy too, because you can think, oh, it's only a short day, but mate, it's just all up and then all down or whatever, and gauge how many Ks you sort of want to spread your time over.
Did you get one of those little books from the Pilgrim office in St John?
Which books?
Like the little guidebook?
No, I had ordered it before I left. I actually had it in 2020 and I just took it, yeah.
Did they give you any sort of map? I think you get like the Pilgrim passport.
I didn't.
Is it a list of accommodations?
We'll highlight them.
Oh, maybe. I can't remember having it. Yeah. And so I bought this actually in the cathedral in Santiago, the Finisterre one, and I've since ordered online the Portugal Camino, so I've got that at home ready to sort of, Sorry? Oh, God, never again. What else? Use the guidebook to enhance your experience, set some milestones, take the green route. We've talked about all of this. Side trip Samos, the longer phone cord, talked about that. Avoid the pilgrim's meals. I took a little, like a shopping bag. I didn't take a little backpack and I was annoyed. I think it would have been much handier to have one of those little tiny disposably backpacks rather than a shopping bag. Leave early after Saria, earplugs and eye mask, a shirt for the afternoon. So I had 2 T-shirts to wear during the day when I hiked, and it's probably nice just to take another one so when you go out in the evening. But I took a little dress which I used all the time, like it folds up into my hand. And I've since bought, we've got, what's the brand? Crag Hoppers now have got like a hiking dress here, and I've grabbed it. It's just great. It's navy. It's got, the proper pockets, and it's really good. So I'm going to take it. It's really small. And Wise Pilgrim or whatever app you want. And that's it. That's the beginning of the rest of my life. So that's us in Porto. So I ran into him eating an ice cream. I said, oh, hello, John, what are you doing here? He said, oh, what are you doing here? Fancy meeting you. I've been waiting for you. Yeah, no, he was really taken aback. You could tell that. You know how sometimes when something's so unexpected? Well, yeah, anyway, he said, oh, I'm just going to go and have some lunch. Would you like to join me? I said, oh, that'd be really lovely. Not on my radar at all. I'm not very with it. And then so we had lunch and we went off and did our own things. And then he said, oh, did you want to meet for dinner tonight? And I said, I'll tell you the story. And I said, oh, that'd be really lovely. Thanks. Thinking, oh, he just feels sorry for me and, giving me some company. And then so we had just a love. There was, buskers in the street, and it was just so gorgeous, a Saturday evening in Porto. And then he said, I was going off to watch the sunset. So that's the thing to do in Porto. You go across the river, the big bridge, and watch the sunset. And he had some light show in a cathedral organised, so he was going to. And he said, oh, do you want to catch up for a drink after you've done that? I said, oh, that'd be really nice. And so then he was staying in an albergue sort of closer to town, and mine was fair way out. And so we went back to his albergue, which had a nice little bar. And so we had a little flight of port and, chatted till 2 a.m. And then I said, oh, God, I better get back. I'll be locked out. And so he said, I'll walk you back. And I said, no, you don't have to walk me back. I've just walked 900 kilometres. I can walk. I could walk to my own albergue. I said, no, I'll walk you back. So I walked back and chatted as we walked along. And we got to the door of my albergue and chatted for a few minutes. And then he said, can I ask you something? And I said, sure. He said, can I kiss you? I just did not see it coming.
Did you say, oh, that'd be lovely?
Yes. I said, is the Pope a Catholic? And the rest is history. Yeah. I know. Thank you. Thanks. That's it. All right. True story. Okay, a few more little bits and pieces. Poles. You can have two different sorts of poles. These are called a Z type, and they're telescopic. So these guys are longer. They don't collapse down as much. So if you want to have something really tiny to go in your pack, you need to have these guys which collapse down into 3 little bits. I personally love these. These are mine. And they just extend into 3 bits. And Bob's your uncle. I like a cork handle. So usually you have it at right angles. That's the idea. And you always put your hand from the bottom to the top and it wraps around the back of your hand. Skiing, you go that way. Hiking, you go that way. So like I said, and don't not have tips. And what else was I going to say? Oh, and here's the other style, which you kind of have to have your right height. They come in 3 different heights because they're not nearly as adjustable. These guys, it's one size fits all, whereas they...
You can get ones with an adjuster. This one just doesn't
have one, yeah. So it just depends. They're a little bit more specific. These are whatever. But like I said, they don't collapse down quite as well. But I got mine in my 36-litre pack to come home and checked it in on the way home. So it's just a personal choice whether you have this style, that style, what sort of handle, whatever, and how much you want to pay. And either way, I just would really recommend poles. Washing, I just took Wilderness Wash, which is just really, you can use it on yourself or for your clothes. I did take some of those little sheets for the laundry. Don't get them wet. Top tip. That worked well. Sorry?
Did you take a sink plug?
No.
No,
I just, ran a bit of water, did that, yeah.
So is that for body hair?
Yep, anything, yeah. But hair, I didn't. I just got a couple of little things of shampoo and conditioner. Yeah. What else do I have? Oops, sorry. So I'll just get rid of that. So my one other funny story is. So just before I left, I was given 2 pairs of Parody Sport undies. They're undies, a lovely Sarah, who is the founder of Parody Sport. So Parody is named after Vanessa Paradis, who was the first woman to climb Mont Blanc. And so she created this company in the States, and it's for active women, designed by women, all very environmentally, they're just the best undies. So I was given 2 pairs to walk on the Camino, which I took, and 1 pair of icebreaker undies, and I absolutely loved them. They're just great. They have no lines that dig in. They wash and dry really well. They're super comfortable. So after it, because I had them and I wore them, and they contacted me and asked me would I like to be an ambassador. So I'm an underwear ambassador. I'm sure I'm the only 62-year-old underwear ambassador in the world. For sensible undies, for sensible ladies, that's exactly right. So anyway, but I don't get anything out of, apart from getting them, there's no benefit apart from recommending that you wear them because they are just super stretchy, comfortable, quick dry, wick the moisture away. Are they bamboo? They're not bamboo. So these guys are synthetic, but they also do a natural fibre one as well, which I've got on. And so they do a... And no, I won't be modelling them. But I highly recommend them. But there's lots of other undies and men's. We've got some, what's the ones in the brown box, the new men's ones?
So we've got some quick dry men's and women's. So there's both. There's lots of options.
Yeah. But So this is my pack, and it weighed about 8 kilos. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do the merino undies dry
Yep.
as quickly?
Yep.
'Cause someone's told me that they didn't, and I found that very hard.
No, do the merino undies dry? Women's and men's merino we have, yes, they do dry. They wick the moisture, they do everything. The only thing is they're not overly tough, and I've got 2 holes. I took 1 merino and 2 of those, and mine got 2 holes in them just from hand washing. Same thing, my shirts, my merino t-shirts have got little holes in them. You've got to be really careful. I mean, I swear by icebreaker t-shirts, that's all I wear, but be really careful when you do the clip up on your backpack, because if you catch your shirt in it, it'll start a hole. And also, you know, where it wears a lot. I mean, 2 shirts for, 6 weeks, they did really well, but I've stitched up lots of little holes, and that's what I find. Particularly the Cool Light, I wear Cool Light. So you can have Cool Light, that's a 2, so that's 100% merino, you can tell by the label. It's only a 140, but these are the Cool Light, that's what I wear, and they're a 125, and they're 40 merino and 60% tencel. And I just find they're a bit silkier and lighter and summerier, and I'm a hot hiker, so I really like those. So I just had 2 of those, and that's all I had for the whole thing. But you know, other things, this sort of idea, which is capilene, which is like an alternative to merino. So the same sort of properties, doesn't smell, wicks the moisture, does all of those things. But if you don't like merino, it's a good option. I took spalms, so just for your arms. So, you know, if you didn't want to have a long sleeve shirt because it's potentially hot, I just took spalms. So if it starts to get there, have them in white as well. But if it's getting really sunny, you just put them on. Then when you stop for a coffee, you can whip them off rather than, you know, you're hot, you're not, you're sunny, you're not. So that, I find them really great. I take them a lot. I'm a hot, I don't like having a lot of hot stuff when I hike. And the other thing I have, so like I said, top of the pack is always your hiking sandals. So I didn't take thongs or Crocs or anything like that because I wanted an option if my boots were killing me or something happened, I could hike in my alternative shoe. So they're as light as a feather. There's many options. I think I grabbed one, a Tiva up the back. That's another sort of one. The men's are the same. So for me, because I was carrying everything and I was only going to have 2 pairs, that's what I chose.
Did you wear them in the shower?
Yep, whatever. And I used to gauge it. Sometimes you just could tell that it was really beautiful and clean and it wasn't an issue, but you could if you wanted to. And then, as I said, with the attractive sock to wear out in the evening, because that's your only option. When I got to Porto, I went to an op shop and bought a pair of jeans and a new T-shirt. Thank God. That's a mid-layer. So you need, I took a mid-layer and a jacket. Do you want to show those other lovely mid-layers over there? So I took, that was my jacket. So it's not down. So there's a down one over there. Some people had down. There's a North Face down, I think, yeah. So a down jacket, you just don't want to get it wet. Or this guy is the Arc'teryx Atom. I've had it for years. I take it everywhere. You can throw it in the wash. It's warm. It's practical. It's great. So I just took layers. And like I said, a mid-layer. So a mid-layer is either something like that, which is fleece, which the old standard polar fleece, or something like this, which is full zip is really handy because you can just cool off a bit. But I mean, I think you saw I walked into Santiago at the end with this on and a T-shirt because it was chilly enough. But we've just got those rab ones which are just beautiful. So they're, yeah, brand new, they're purple. So they're sort of got a...
some nice colours in men's too, don't worry. Lynne was kind of a little biased.
Mostly. So they've just got a fleecy stuff inside. But they're nice and stretchy and you can hike in them and feel movey, whereas I find that some of the fleece feels a bit hot and not as breathable.
You can see.
Yeah, that's it.
Got little bubbles of fleece, but then you've got
Oh, they're great. Buff is a must. I cut my buff in half. It's a merino buff. I love it, but I cut it in half because, and I took the 2 halves thinking, oh, you know, I'll cut that weight down. And when I was on the bus going from Santiago to Porto, the vent above me was broken, and so the wind was pouring on me. So guess what I did?
Shoved you butt in it.
And guess where it still is? Idiot. So head torch is a must. You need it to get around the albergues. And the one hint about a head torch is have a red light, because you don't want to be blasting all your peeps at night or getting up early in the morning. And so I'm a dry bag absolute lover. So obviously I have, you know, pink for sleeping, orange for all my clothes. I have yellow for all my first aid. Toiletries bag, so little Cedar Summit one. It's really light, you know, waterproofy-ish. So all my toiletries were in that. And rain gear. So they don't need to go in a dry bag. So that I've got an Arc'teryx beater. That's my raincoat. So just that and my waterproof pants, little North Face guys. They were fantastic. And what else? And a towel. And another little dry bag. I kept socks, undies and bras all together. And I think that's it. You really have to be organised, and yeah, so if it's colour coded, it's all together, you know, that's going to be there, that's going to be there, and you can just put your hand on what you need. And my pack's got a zip on the side, so if I needed the first aid, I could just undo the side zip and grab the colour out, or my waterproof gear. And the towel, there's multiple choices. I didn't skimp on a towel because that is the only towel you're going to have for 2 months nearly. And I particularly, so dry light, so I actually did some sampling at home. I've got a few others, and I dry half of me with like the dry light, half with the other, all the Cedar Summit ones. And then, so when I'm multi-day hike, I take a smaller one that's lighter because, you know, there's a lot of stuff to carry. But this I liked because I didn't take a sarong, some people do, but I thought it could do if I had to go swimming, which I never did. And it just, and that's the large. It could be a skirt, it could be in anything. So that's a large dry light, but by comparison, that's like a tissue. Yeah.
That's how small it packs up to be. It's
Yeah.
mega tiny. But that's more than sufficient to dry you to the bottom.
Yeah.
You can see through it. Look.
Does it feel strange at first to use it?
They kind of work a bit like a chamois. So as long as you give them a good wash before you try to use them for the first time,
Yeah.
they work really, really, really
So
well.
great for
And they
multi-day
dry
stuff.
super fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one, surprisingly, though, doesn't have a clip on it.
Oh.
So a lot of them come with like, oh, hang on, yes, it does.
Oh, that's got a clip, so that's how you dry it. And that new dress I was talking about, it's got a clip, 2 clips on either side. You can even clip your dress up. It's pretty impressive. And so this was all my clothes. So like I said, I took a dress, which I just would absolutely recommend, only to the women, but optional. It's optional. But it's got birds on it, of course, and it just folds up into nothing. So I could wear, you know, a long sleeve under it and then my tights under it, and it just was a nice change, and I was really glad I took that. Beanie, which I, like I said, handed out. A pair of shorts I took. They're just the Patagonia, baggies, and I never wore them. Never wore them. Merino, I took a merino bottom and top, so that's merino longs, and sometimes when it was cold I did sleep in those. And then halfway through, they're my 2 icebreaker cool light, that's that green, the cool light, that's all I had. And then I had this, which is an Arc, it's a long sleeve, pretty light, but good for sun where you don't need anything too warm, but you just want to have another layer. Because some mornings it was quite chilly on your arms and you needed a layer, and that's pretty good. And that's an icebreaker. So that was the next level after that. So that looks like a lot of levels, I know, but for that long and that much difference in temperature, so, you know, that's the coolest, that's a bit warmer. Then I had my, that one, and then I had my jacket. So that,
You wore those long trousers?
every day until I lost 6 kilos and they wouldn't stay on me, and so I wore my tights for the rest of it. Seriously, they were literally falling off me, I know. And I didn't diet, I drank plenty of beer, don't worry.
You just all the water.
Oh, just walking, just constantly moving. And I'm not a big eater, but it's just that, and carrying the pack, and you just get so fit along the way. So yeah, I was 61 when I left, and I was 56 when I got back, and then I went into 55 when I got back. But I'm 61 again now, nearly. And I took a singlet. I wore it a few times, probably could have done without it. Yeah, icebreaker merino, 200s. 200s I think is the best number in a merino. Just anything bigger. If you're going somewhere freezing, 260s are good, but just I take them camping, hiking, I take them everywhere, 200 top and bottom. And then, yeah, like I had just a pair of just exercise, like your gym tights, yep. And that's what I ended up walking. I wore them in the evenings initially when I had these on during the day, and then when I couldn't wear these anymore, I didn't, I just hiked in those every day, and they were so comfortable, yeah. And then I had to wear my merino ones in night. They're just gym tights. Yeah, I've got the Patagonia ones now, which I'll take. And I've also got a pair of Arc'teryx. They're called Row, which if I hike anywhere where it's cold, they've got a little, like a furry.
Like a light fleece jumper.
Yeah,
it's technically a base layer, but it's too warm. Really, unless you're going to be somewhere super cold.
Yeah.
You could use it like a mid-layer option.
Yeah, and the Row pants have got just that little furry lining, and they just are warmer than just a pair of these sort of pants, depending on where you're going. So that's, and a cap. I took a broad-brimmed hat and a cap, and then ended up leaving my hat. I just felt it was constrictive, and I couldn't. I was hot, and I don't know. I just ended up a cap. Having said that, here's my one message to everyone. I've had this little spot on my face the whole time. Like I had it for about a year and a half when I look back on photos, all through the Camino. I had this little red dot, and when I knew it was something that I'd have to get, zapped or a little bipping. It was a basal cell carcinoma, infiltrating basal cell carcinoma, and so I had a 2 centimetre hole cut out of here 6 months ago, and a big flap. So that whole scar is because I, for too long, ignored this little red dot that I had on my face. So note to everyone, get your skin checked. Oh,
Wear sunscreen.
I wear sunscreen, I wore a hat, I just ignored it for too long. That was my problem. I mean, I knew it would be something, but I just waited way too long before I actually went and had something done about it. I went about other things, but just kept forgetting to say, can you just have a look at this little red dot on my face? Oh my God. So that's what all of that is. But anyway, get your skin checked.
Can I ask you something?
So go ahead.
I was just going to ask, if we were like in a warmer season, we're just wearing shorts to hike?
Yeah.
If we see a cathedral or something we want to go in, do we have to...
No, everything's fine. Didn't seem like there was any dress code or any. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of the guys just had shorts on too, and it was no drama. Yeah, yep.
What about, I'm really wanting to take an umbrella for the Metta. I just cannot think of anything worse.
So the question is whether or not to take an umbrella. If you're using hiking poles, then you can't. So it's
What about the one that attaches to your pack?
we don't have that, do we? Oh, yeah. So the one that attaches, yeah.
Is that the Euro?
Yeah, the Euroshrim. So
wanna-
they come with an
Do you want to show 'em?
attachment.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know we had them in.
And
Yeah.
you can get a left and a right attachment, so depending on which side you want to put it on, it attaches to your pack so your hands.
Yeah, I've done a fair bit of
Research?
on it.
Yeah.
Because I get really hot on my head.
Yep.
And thinking about walking the Metta is like being in Australia.
Yeah. But it was really cold when I walked. That's when I had my everything on, and it was a freezing cold headwind the whole way. So the question is on the Metta whether or not it's going to be super hot and you need an umbrella. So I didn't realise we had the umbrella that actually, because I never do because of poles.
Essentially, just like a little band that goes around your shoulder strap, and then the umbrella clips into there. And then the umbrellas come in a variety of sizes. This one's quite a decent size one, and obviously it's a silver foiled one too, so it's a reflective. Sorry if anybody's superstitious. But when it sits up, which you've got to lock it, there it is, and then it just kind of clips on, and then you can kind of be hands-free. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for asking, because I wouldn't have even thought of that. Yeah. So you used brollies? Yeah. And it worked well? That's great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, great. You're next, sorry.
It's not related to the gear at all, actually. It's just related. I know you've said all along that you enjoyed every moment of it and didn't take a rest day and all of that.
Yep.
I have a lot of trepidation about the first 2 days.
Okay.
And so I'm just wondering, you know, I know you're saying don't overthink it as well, and I feel like I'm now overthinking it.
Okay.
I'm thinking about the first 2 days. I don't feel worried about any of the rest of it, but I just think,
Yeah.
sort of thinking.
So the question is that the anxiety and trepidation about the first 2 days and actually getting there and getting started and getting on with it. And I think I actually should try and share it with you. It was, like I said, it was what I said that night before I set off, and I was just astounded at how seamless it all was and all of the things I'd worried about. Like, I knew my gear was fine, but it was just all of the logistics around it and just actually getting started. And I think if you just embrace it and off you go, you'll be right. Yeah, yeah.
But walk that first day or 2 days on adrenaline.
A little bit of adrenaline,
There's
yes.
so much planning that goes
Yeah.
into it. You know,
Yes.
We're all sitting here now. We're all planning it and thinking about it a lot.
Yeah.
And so by the time you get there, it is so exciting.
It's so exciting, and once you start walking up that first hill, you just feel like you've been doing it forever. It's just amazing, yeah. And there'll be people passing you, and it's all of, that's what I found surprised me more than anything, was just that it was the people. I didn't know whether for me it would be, you know, the culture, you know, there were so many aspects of it, the spiritual side of it that would be quite profound. And for me, it was just the friendship and the people and the whole Camino family that really, really shocked me. And even John he's on the rail trail, and he's now got his little cycling group in Murwillumbah. God love him. And today, sent me a photo, ran into one of the people who's done the Camino, that we have a little group in Murwillumbah. I haven't seen him forever. He's done 3. He's done the Plata, the Del Norte and the Frances, and John was riding with him today. Like, it's just amazing. Yeah, yeah.
What about border control going from France into Spain?
Yep, there is none. Literally, you're walking along a track. You walk along a track, and then there's a cattle grid. You're up in the mountains, there's a cattle grid, and there's a water fountain beside the cattle grid. And so you fill your water up and you walk into Spain. Sorry? Yeah, there's a sign, but but the cattle grid, I have photos. I mean, you can't put them all up. Yeah, photos of me. But there's definitely a water supply there as well, yeah.
You know how you said you saw taxis in your first one from St John de Paul?
Yep. Up to Roncesvalles, yes.
And you said that there was a spot.
Yep.
Do the taxis just go along there, or do you need to?
You'd need to book it, I'd imagine. I didn't see traffic going along the road, but I saw, which I was surprised, what's that vehicle doing there? And that's what it was doing, yeah.
And do you know
So,
if you take cash for the taxi or card?
don't know, sorry. So it was a question about the taxi that drops you halfway up around above Orison, so you'd have to book it, yeah. Sorry, yep, sorry.
What's the total weight of your pack?
8. Yeah.
With water?
Yeah, yep, it's 8, but that's only with a 750 of water. Yeah,
My second question was, do you know if there are less supports in the Primitivo?
I do.
How the Frances has quite a bit of supports, but
A lot, yeah. I don't know that any is as much. Even someone I spoke to who had done the Norte, it was really difficult on the Norte to get, a long distances between accommodation. The Plata is the same. It's like 40 k's between places, and there's a lot of, having to catch a taxi if you're day, and not a lot of people on it as well. Primitivo, I'm not sure. Yeah, yeah, great. Well, that's a good reason to go. Sorry?
You could have walked to Roncesvalles on the first day.
Could I have?
If you didn't have that accommodation.
Yeah, I could. I mean, I do a lot of walking, a lot of hiking. I'm sure I could have personally, but I just didn't see the point. I just really wanted to have a nice cruise, and I was at Orison by 10:30. True, I got there, it was 10:30. I'm going, right, great. But I sat out on, so the big albergue at Orison has this big deck, and I just sat and watched the vultures swimming around. I had a coffee, I chatted to pilgrims, I had a beer, I just sat there and actually soaked up the Camino. Like, I'm in no rush to get from A to B. And then our albergue border was about 1k further on, and it didn't open till, 2 o'clock or something like that. So those who were staying there just went up there and just lied around on the lawn and chatted to one another until it opened up. And then, so, some people are on a tight time frame. They've only got a month or something, and so they've got to just tick it off. And I have a lot of people come into the shop who have got it all pre-booked already. They're with a company, they know every place they're staying, and it's not even a decision, how fast they go. But I literally left at 7:30, chatted along the way, lost a glove. So I had a pair of gloves and it was freezing, and I stupidly, and you know how don't do that because that's going to be a really dumb thing to do, took them off because I didn't want to take my pack off and stop, and tucked them in between my pack and me. Who does that? Who does that? So, half an hour later I put my hand down there, Michael Jackson, eat your heart out. And another thing, speaking about Michael Jackson, along the way, further along, but you'll often see this graffiti on walls and through little villages, and it says Michael Jackson.
Because people lose their gloves.
I don't know.
Huh? It was a sign.
Yeah, it was a sign. But yeah, people just write Michael Jackson. It's so weird. Why? I know. Anyway, so you'll be on your lookout for Michael Jackson the whole way. Did someone else? Sorry, yes.
Is there like an albergue you cannot miss, like that you'd recommend everyone stay at?
The Nun one I loved. La Faba I loved. Roncesvalles, the big monastery there I loved. The one I stayed in, I'll have a look through. The one I stayed in Logroño I didn't love, and there's another one I didn't love.
You're looking at me like I'm
No,
going to give you the
no, no. But I've got it all. Anyone that wants to email me, whatever you call it, this thing, Instagram me, and ask me a question. I'm more than happy to answer anything, and I'll have to refer to my little book of notes and let you know what I would really recommend or not. Yeah.
One, the Australian lady.
Yeah.
Say, is it Julie or something like that?
They own it now.
Yeah, it's apparently Dan Mullins.
Yeah, we went to that town and asked for them. I can't remember the name of the town.
Yeah, if you listen to Dan Mullins, his podcast.
Yes. Yeah. But Casa Susie, yeah. But it was sort of halfway through my day, like it didn't work out that we could stay there, but we went by and asked about them but kept going because it it didn't sort of fit in with the schedule. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see many people reading or with e-books or anything? Is there much time to do that, or is it chatting?
Yeah, I didn't see anyone reading. Not really, no. And like I said, I had my e-book thing, but I only listened to one book. I had heaps loaded. I said to my kids, can you all recommend a book you want me that I could read on the way? And I just didn't have time. It's too busy. So yeah, long cord. What else did we say? There's a few necessities. And hat, cool. Just if you have a hot head, good shade, but yeah, breathable at the back. Your hair will protect your head. My packing list is there. That's my packing list though. That's literally the brands I took and used. So some of them aren't available anymore, but it just gives you an idea of stuff. And then there's also the generic.
Yeah, they're on the front table, so there's a couple of those around. But if you end up with either one of these, and when you figure out what bits you're missing, when you come back to us, we can give you alternative options
Yeah,
or recommendations
yeah.
based on what it is you're missing and
Yeah, because
what
that's
time of
old.
year you're going and what
Yeah,
you're actually
yeah.
going to need.
That's old now, but there's
feel free to,
new
take one.
versions.
Thank you.
Take them.
Take one, pass one on.
And the other one is
other ones are on the little
Lauren is our social media, Wild Earth social media gorgeous person, and she did the Camino as well, and the other one is her packing list, and she's a lightweight packer. I think she only took a 28-litre bag, whereas mine was 36 and she had much more lightweight gear. So that's a good example of light versus not so light.
Have you got the dress that we were talking about, the navy dress?
We don't have them in store, unfortunately.
Oh.
They are still available online. There's the 10, 12 and 14 available in stock, but they're an online only at this point.
Yeah. Crag hoppers. Yeah.
They're a really light, they're almost like, they're like a synthetic material, so very light, very breathable. They're like wash and wear, they're like no creasing, that kind of thing.
Odour,
Little button
insects.
up. They're really cute.
Yeah. I wear mine to work. I actually work in mine. It's come to
Before everybody hops up and runs away, we are going to draw. They're only tiny, tiny, tiny little prizes, but we've got 3 to hand out. So if you want to pull out 3 numbers. All right. 1,
2.
2, and
Okay, 11, 28 and 70.
11, 28, and 70. 11.
Oh, there. Thank you. There you go. And 70, there you go. They're a great laundry bag, those, when you go anywhere. I love them for that. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Great.